Hello, career thought leaders. Today is one of our second, I guess it's our second or third session of the Friday in career services, where we're talking about how you can use AI in our career services work and what that means for clients. And today we're going to talk specifically about how you could use it in job search. And so I'd love to hear from you as you're joining. Say hello. Let us know what kinds of clients you work with, so that we can maybe bring in some more specific examples as we go through our tips. We're going to be doing this every first and third Friday in 2025. So I hope you'll join us and share with me what you'd like to learn when it comes to Friday in career services. So say hello, let me know that you can hear me, and we're going to dive into how we can help our clients with these types of tools. Now, one of the things that I know we used ChatGPT a lot. We've talked about that tool. We talk a little bit about Perplexity here when we talk about especially research, which we're going to do today. But I'd also love to hear about other tools you use, other things you might be learning. We don't want to overdo it on the tools because it's really about putting them to work, not necessarily collecting them on our computer, but whatever we can do to just be helpful to our clients, that's what we want to do. So one of the things that I've heard a lot right now is that job seekers are just facing a longer job search. We've got people unemployed for a longer time. It's just making it harder to get back to work. And one of the things that we use AI to do is get out of some of those ruts. So that's what we're going to look at today, is how could we help a job seeker get out of a rut when they're in their job search? And how can AI maybe help us do that? And so I've got some examples and some things that we'll share, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and examples or questions. Hey, I'm working with this client type of stuff as we're going through as well. So the first thing that we were going to talk about, we're going to have three things today. First is getting them out of a rut in terms of thinking about new ways that they could look, new things they might look at. The second is doing some research and really understanding who they're targeting and how they can connect with those folks in networking. So other roles or industries they might consider, networking, and then mindset and goal setting. So think about those things as we go through, and any tools that you've heard of or that you're thinking about in that space as well. All right, working with adults, some high school students, love that. Thanks for sharing. Yay. And Norma, good to see you. Tom, good to see you as well. Excellent. Okay, so let's dive into how we might use these systems to help people get out of their rut. And of course, my computer is laggy today, because anytime you want to talk about technology, your technology has to show you who's boss, right? So just will kind of bear with me today as we go through. So let's talk about a client. And you've got a client and they're in technology, and maybe they've been targeting government jobs because the tech space, Google, Apple, those things have been laying off. So they thought, I'm going to go work in government. Now, of course, our government leadership is moving towards a space where there are going to be fewer government jobs, perhaps. And so they're thinking, okay, now what, right? What could I do now? How do I think about this differently? And we just pick a specific title. Let's say we've got a software developer. They've been working in the high tech space, and probably when they think about that, it's just more the companies they are used to hearing about in the news, which is the first place we'll explore. And then again, they were looking in government and thinking that may not be the best shift anymore. What does that look like? So here are some of the processes that I go through with a client, and I am not going to use any super fancy prompts, although we will talk about prompts a little bit more as we get into our sessions. Today, I just want to look at, hey, I can hop on and help somebody brainstorm really quickly without having to do it right. It's really all about curiosity and exploration, and then the power that we bring as the coach in helping the person think through that information, debrief that information, and work it toward action. That's where we want to go. So I'm going to do our little case study here on ChatGPT. Let me see if I can get the right thing open. and say hello. Let us know if you just joined. Say hello. Let us know who you work with while we get our ChatGPT pulled up here. Okay, so you could do this in Gemini. You could do this in Claude. Claude is a great writer. I've had a little bit less use of it in terms of brainstorming. You could do this in Perplexity, but you'd get a little bit less creativity. And in the next steps, we might want to move it to Perplexity. But for now, in terms of just brainstorming, the free version of ChatGPT is probably your best bet. Now, I do use the paid version, but I only do that so that when I'm doing demos, we don't have even a more lag than just my computer is going to cause and those types of things. So you can use the free version. I just use paid for speed and for volume, because I do quite a bit of volume because I'm doing demos. All right. So let's hop in there. We're working with a software developer. So I can say I'm a coach working with a software developer. Or I could just, put it in there and be the client. Whatever you want to do, it really doesn't matter either way. But I could say I'm a career coach working with a software developer who is exploring opportunities beyond the traditional high-tech space. With the current economic challenges, what other industries might they consider? And we're just going to see what we get, right? We're just starting this exploration. I might do some of this on my own before I get with the client, but you'll see really quickly that doing this side by side, sharing the screen with the client gets to helpful in terms of the coaching conversation. And I'm always going to talk about how we can use AI in coaching as a coaching tool, not necessarily a bunch of prompts we'd send somebody away to do research with, because there's a specific way I'm going to use this in my coaching relationship that's actually going to make it more powerful than if I did it on my own before I came to the session, and if I sent them away and had them do it on their own, although then they could kind of replicate it on their own. But what I'm hearing from some coaches is, I'm having people do research with it, but they get so overwhelmed by all the ideas. Like, that's where the coaching comes in, and why we want to use it as a coaching tool in our sessions versus necessarily sending them away to do it. Hi, Emily. Great to have you. Health and informatics. Ooh, I love it. Okay. Cybersecurity students at a community college. So an in-demand career, but that doesn't always mean that it's easy for people to get what they're looking for, right? I'm going to see if I can make this bigger. Let's see what that did for y'all. I made it a little bit bigger. It's not ideal, but we'll work with it. Let me see. Oh, look at that. I can put my little face in it, and that makes it even bigger. Okay. So we get some ideas. Now, this is where the coaching piece comes in. What about this is interesting to our client? What isn't? They're pushing some things that our client might not have the experience to do. I could then inform it more about what my client does and get more specific. I don't start that way on purpose. I don't put their resume in at first on purpose, because the whole point is to blow it up a little bit. And if we put in too much qualifying information, we don't get that experience of blowing it up a little bit. The other thing is that although these roles might not be specific to my client, since it's telling me that healthcare and biotech is growing, I might go a completely different direction than what it's saying, but it's still giving me ideas of things that get me out of where my client might be stuck. So what in healthcare might be a good fit for them, given their search, their circumstances, et cetera, even though the specific information ChatGPT is giving me might not be. Finance and insurance, manufacturing and automation, that's part of the regime change too. I don't know the right word, but we're seeing the call for manufacturing to come back and the tariffs to perhaps incentivize that. Energy and utilities, same thing, huge growing field. How could my client plug into that? They aren't going to want to do all of these, right? This is too much. So we're going to work with them to prioritize it. What things are the best fit for their skills right now, especially if they've been unemployed a while. We don't want to be unemployed any longer. So what things are the best fit for their skills right now? And that might be even my next chat. So I've worked mostly in the big tech firms like Google Apple, AWS, which of these might be the easiest transition? And I'd have the conversation with them because we're using it as a coaching tool. But I could also ask ChatGPT to get some ideas on how they would prioritize it, how big data would prioritize it. So it says finance, insurance, healthcare, biotech, retail, and commercial. So the other way we use this as a coaching tool is my client might go, oh, such and such wasn't included. Now we've got a spark. We've got a, hey, this is important to me. This is interesting to me. And I can move that idea forward, even if ChatGPT said it wasn't a good fit, because we have that connection, that spark, that information, that bummer, it left this out. We can explore that thing deeper and find the connections, find the way to make it a good connection for the client, even if it wasn't an obvious, easy connection. So I'm not just using this information and taking it, at face value. I'm using it as part of my coaching information, part of my coaching tool. And their reaction to the suggestions is maybe even more important than the suggestions themselves, because we're using it as a way to find out what is important to them, what is interesting to them. And we've probably asked that question before we got started with this process. But when we see it in black and white or something gets eliminated, that's when it really gives us that opportunity to say, ooh, wait, that was important to me. And those are the things we're looking for. So it's not just the system or the prompt, it's the conversation that you're having as you debrief this. So then let's say we work through with our client and we pick a few of these. I'm just going to pick one for the case of our case study today. Well, why not? We'll choose energy and utilities. So I'm particularly interested in energy and I'm going to say create a list of 10 companies in that industry in the Austin, Texas area. We're going to pretend that that's where our person is. And this is where moving to Perplexity might be helpful. We'll go there in a second. Nice thing is we can do it both places pretty easily. And I don't know if you'll get this in the free version, but the paid version has decided to create me a map, which I really don't need at this point, but that's fine. I'm just going to say put them in a list for me instead of a map. And it will do it because the map was way too much, especially for our conversation right now, but even for our client conversation, the map might be too much. So it's giving me some information. Now, typically I'll do this in a second prompt just because I want to check and see if these companies are on target before I do this. But this is one of my favorite things to do, and you have to know what's important about the company for your client. But I can say, make a spreadsheet of the companies with the columns, including information about number of employees, revenue, top customers. I could do anything, right? And it will tell me if it doesn't know, and it, all those things. But I love to make a spreadsheet of the companies for my client just right here using ChatGPT. And I could put whatever I wanted to put in this prompt to get the information out. And sometimes I'll ask for things and it says it can't get it. That's fine. Sometimes I'll ask it to bring in comments that people make about the company online. Can it get information from Glassdoor? So you can get really specific on what you want it to put into the spreadsheet. Right now it's downloading the file, which is kind of a bummer. It used to just create it right in the thing for me. But let's see if I can open it and add it or share it with you real quick. So this is another way that it just starts to build that list, build the companies, build those things, and do that really quickly. So it created the spreadsheet for me, and I could download that and share it with my customer, client, or we could do it in their chat GPT so that it just shows up right away and they see that in their screen. But this is what it did for me. So I've got this spreadsheet of the company name, the number of employees, the revenue, and the top customers. And again, it would continue to add other columns just based on what I asked it to do. All right, so that's the first part. We got out of our box. We thought about some different places we might go. We asked ChatGPT, hey, create a target list for me. We double check that first, and then we could add some criteria and have it create a company list for me. That's the research piece. And again, it's really helpful if the coach is working through that piece with the candidate, because it's not just about the output, which can be overwhelming. It's about the analysis of it. What about this? What about that? What did it leave out? What is most interesting? How are we going to prioritize these? Those are all conversations that as you're having those with the client, they're getting more focused, they're getting more confident, and they're figuring out, okay, next time that I have other needs that I want to go and get new ideas, now I've also got the criteria that I'm going to use to know which of those ideas is most interesting to me. And that's the whole process of coaching that is important, that goes so much more beyond just what they could get from the tool by themselves. How do they work through it? How do they prioritize it? How do they know where they're going? Yay. Yes, it is. It's so cool. All right. So then, whether your client needs help with that or not, maybe they already have that piece. How do you help them network? And this is one of the first things that I started playing around with ChatGPT and Perplexity to do a while ago, just to say, could we make this easier in terms of finding opportunities and places to network? Well, yes, you can. All right, so let's come back to our ChatGPT. And I might build some of this same stuff in Perplexity, just so that we can use that as well. We don't have a ton of time, so I might not do that, but you can do the same stuff in Perplexity and then ask the same questions. The value of Perplexity is that it won't lie and it won't make stuff up. So occasionally ChatGPT will make up something that doesn't really exist, and it can cause some problems. Not too frequently, it's gotten better, but just to be aware of that. So now I'm going to say, what professional networking opportunities and professional association meetings might be a good fit for me to network into these companies? This is a coaching question, right? We'd have our client think about this, and they'd go to Google and they'd research it, and they'd waste a ton of time. This is where these systems are awesome, is because it speeds up this part, the information gathering. It still can't do the strategy. What am I going to ask? What am I going to say? How am I going to feel confident? How am I going to feel comfortable? All of that stuff that people need a coach to help them with. Now we can spend more time on that and less time on this. So it tells me the association, why, the meetings, and of course, not too surprising, right? The next step I might ask it after I've looked through these and made sure that they're effective, I can ask it to put these in a spreadsheet for me. So put the events, put the organizations. I wouldn't necessarily want it to combine those. So I might ask for just the professional associations first in a spreadsheet. Then I could ask for the events to be put into a spreadsheet, and include the recent days or the upcoming event dates. And as much as it can find, it will put all of that into a spreadsheet for you, so you don't have to waste your time there. Again, you're not wasting your time on this information gathering and organizing. The system can do that. Now you're going to think about their approach. And this is where some of the really fun stuff comes in. So I want to meet directors of development. I'm going to put software just so that we're clear. So this is where we get into the market research. So I want to go to these meetings and I want to talk to people about topics that are important to them. What are directors of software development worried about in the energy sector today? And we're going to take our professional experience and our clients' professional knowledge and overlay it over this. But what we get is typically really on point thoughts. Cybersecurity and infrastructure. My husband is in this space, and this is a huge conversation they're having right now, right? This is on point. And if your client knows what their industry is, they'll know these things. If not, you might talk about how they approach these questions with a little bit of carefulness, or how they could do a little bit more research before they go to make sure these are on point. But if you're working with someone who's in development, even if they're not in energy, they'll probably know what of this is on point and what might be a little off. Integrating software, data management, analytics, transition to smart grids. Again, huge conversation happening in my house at this moment. Regulatory compliance reporting, that's always big. Scalability of energy software. So now, instead of my client having generic questions at their networking, which typically with this more analytical audience is super uncomfortable, now they've got really good, thoughtful, informed questions to ask that make networking so much more interesting for them. Again, especially this audience who's not used to the small talk type of talk. And I love how I didn't even ask it to, and ChatGPT did this for me. What's Marie going to say next? You could ask it to put this in a spreadsheet for you, or whatever is easiest for your client, where it would have each of the concerns, why it matters, and the conversation starter, so that it is easier to read than in a Word doc. And it would do it in a minute. It would have that spreadsheet for me. So now I've got, this is my new audience. This is the industry. These are some events I could go to. And here are some of the conversations I might want to be having there. I could repeat this same process for other industries. I could ask questions about LinkedIn groups. That's where Perplexity can be helpful, because ChatGPT will make up LinkedIn groups that don't exist. But Perplexity will actually give you LinkedIn groups, or it will say, I can't find any in that industry, and you'll have to go to LinkedIn and research yourself. But this process you can repeat as you go through it with your clients. So now we've got them out of their rut. We've found some places they can go and network. We could also ask about online resources that those professional associations have, right? If they're not wanting to go do an in-person network, or they want to get started before some of these in-person events are going to happen. And then here's some great topics of conversation to have with those people. I could take it deeper. What are some things I could read on these topics before I go? And it would give me that information. All of those informational tasks it can do. That gives us time as the coach. It's not doing our job, because our job is, how are you going to go? What are you going to ask? What do you want to do afterwards? How are you going to follow up? Here's some scripts. ChatGPT can give us some of that, but I found that most people want some human interaction in that part, where we're coming up with the exact strategy. We're overcoming that person's internal voices that are getting in their way, and we're creating a personalized strategy for them to do all the other parts, which we might use ChatGPT to help us with. But we've got the guidebook, right? That's what we teach in our hidden job market class, at least, right? And you've got it, the guidebook of, this is the process and this is the next step to help them through, so that they can go and do it for themselves while they use the tech tools to help them. So that's the job search piece. Now, I thought, AI, generative AI, gets a lot of the conversation. That's great, but let's talk about some other tools that could help us beyond that. So I wanted to look at some mindset and goal setting tools that might be not AI, but just good tools that we could use in the process. So I don't know if any of you use any of these tools, but I was going to pull up my list here and see what I can find. Let me see if I can get back to the list I was looking at right before we got into. Okay, so I have not used some of these, but I want to share some of them with you. Some of them I have used, and again, they don't use AI, but they're just helpful. So I love Calm. I don't know if any of you else love the Calm app, but I love the Calm app. I'm particularly fond of a few of the folks. You got to get the right voice for you, and who's got the right tone for you. I like some of the folks that are a little bit more irreverent and funny when they do their stuff and then do their meditations, but I do use that to help with my mindset. Headspace is another one that I've heard coaches talking about. Headspace will give you that opportunity to set timers, so during the day you're getting the reminders to do your meditations. Goal setting trackers. I've talked a lot about spreadsheets, but do you use anything like Trello or Notion? I know Notion has gained a lot of traction recently. Some people even use more project management systems like ClickUp or Asana to help set those goals and move through them. I'd love to hear if you're using any of these tools for yourself or think about how you might use them with your clients. Then there's some things that I haven't heard of before. I'll paste this one in a little thing and put it up on the chat. Smiling Mind. Ooh, I like that. Free good. So this reminds me. So some people were saying that with Kaiser, like if you have Kaiser as your provider, and I'm sure other healthcare providers like that some of these apps actually come free with your healthcare provider. So that's something to have your client check out. This was a new one for me that I'm going to check out. It's a behavioral, so it uses the principles of behavioral psychology to help you do your work. And then Focus Mate is another one where you can join a group where you go and do focused work together. Maybe you set that up for your clients where you've got a job search group where they can come in and do some of those things. But these tools, there's a lot of tools now that do have the behavioral based competencies built into helping people goal set. And then obviously the project management tools that they may have used in work or whatever that are easy for them to pull into this kind of space, so that you can work them through the process of not just getting the information, get their target list, get the networking events, but then also set the goal. All right, so you're going to do these things to prepare for this event. Let's get it in your Trello board, right? Let's get it in your ClickUp, get it in your Notion board, whatever it is that they use. And I'd be careful about introducing too many new things. So if spreadsheets work, let's use that. If they've used Trello before, let's do that. Don't want to introduce a whole bunch of new stuff, but what can help them set those goals, and or what tools might help them with their mindset, understanding that this is going to be challenging, and that the more we're in job search, the more our mindset suffers, right? I mean, they've done research that our mental health suffers when we're in this job search space. So having tools and helping clients set up structures to work on their mindset is going to have a huge impact. So I always say we've got the steps up here, right? You've got the process up here, and then we've got the river of mindset running underneath. And typically when the steps aren't happening, it's not because they don't understand the steps or they don't have a script, although that might be helpful. It's because this river of mindset running underneath is washing everything away. And we've got to take care of that at the same time that we're implementing the process steps along the way. So this was a lot of fun. Thank you for participating and sharing your ideas. On the 3rd of January, we'll be back. We're going to talk about some interview preparation things and tools that we can use. And so if you have thoughts or questions on that, let me know. And the last thing I'll say is that today is the last day to register for the professional development event that our group does every year. We're in Baltimore, April 6th through the 9th. And you will be able to register after today, but after today, the price will go up. So if you've been thinking about joining us, or you always have it on your calendar, we love that. Don't miss out on the early bird pricing. Last chance is today. So we will see you in January 3rd. Have a wonderful holiday season. Have a great start to the new year. And if you're joining us in Baltimore, make sure you catch that today. If you have a discount. So if you're an associate or a CIA member or anything, if you don't see the discount in your Mighty Networks area, shoot us an email and we'll get you the discount code so that you can show up at the price that you are welcomed into based on your participation in the community. Thank you, everyone, and happy holidays.